Welcome to the SaaS AdLab podcast, where we bring to you the stories of SaaS founders, entrepreneurs, and CEOs. My name is Luis. I'm the founder of Fantom Agency, a digital marketing agency specialized in scaling SaaS companies. And today I have the pleasure of interviewing Gilles. He is the CEO over at Livestorm. First of all, thank you so much for being on here today. It's a pleasure having you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Definitely. I know it's late for you over in Paris. But again, thank you so much. So to get started, why don't you just tell me and tell us really, a little bit about your background and how was it that you got started in software, and how did how did you get to create the product that Livestorm is today?
Yeah, sure. So I think I'm a first-time entrepreneur, and this is actually my first company, and I fresh out of college. I met, we are 4 co-founders, and I met my 3 other co-founders actually in college in the same school. Same in Paris, and essentially it's a school that teaches you how to design, marketing, and then development. So, I learned how to code. My co-founders learned how to do marketing and design as well. So we had this kind of a full stack thing going on, right? And we had a bunch of projects, mostly data visualization projects going on, a lot of side projects, and, one thing led to another. And we had this final exam we had to do, and we had this idea of live streaming product, and we wanted to work in B2B SaaS. And when you bring together B2B SaaS and live streaming, essentially, webinar appears, right? So, and then I was doing a lot of webinars. I was an intern at the time. I was still doing an internship at a startup here in Paris called Mention. It's a social media monitoring company. And we're doing a lot of webinars out there. And I was really getting frustrated because we had to learn something every time we need to attend a webinar. We had a lot of friction going on because, a lot of security issues, a lot of, plain text, HTML, email that were not looking at all like our brand. So it was really clunky, really old fashioned. We wanted to do something that looks nice. We had a strong, thing for design. So we wanted something that looks nice, works inside a browser, no friction. And this is where we got the idea of Livestorm. The funny story is we presented the thing to the jury, right? And we had the entire school joining on the webinar, on the streaming. And for 8 hours, we streamed using our own product we have built in 2 months with a really early prototype. And it was a really good experience. And when it all came to an end after the exam and everything, we were like, dude, we have to continue. We're onto something. So, and we just continued. It was back in 2015, and January 2016, we graduated. And right after, we just started from scratch the product.
Wow. So everything happened super fast, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that kind of got my attention from that specifically was the fact that you mentioned that this is your first time being an entrepreneur. Yeah. Is it also the first time for the other 3 co-founders?
Yeah, it was really first time for the entire entrepreneurship thing. It was obviously we had a lot of projects on the side, and we knew how to build a product from scratch, but we didn't know all the things around the business about building a company, about building a team and everything. It was really the first time, and we had so much luck, to have this connections with startups here in Paris and entrepreneurs that actually mentored us in many different ways.
Really
so
cool.
It was. Yeah.
What was one of the things, right, is typically when I interview founders on here, and they're, they have 3, 4, 5 different projects behind them that either failed or they ended up exiting, or something happened where now they're focusing on something new. But in this case, you're literally like a first time product, and you've run it so far for about 4 years, and it seems to be doing very, very well. So what are some of the struggles that you kind of like face in the beginning that, obviously I think every entrepreneur can connect with this, right? But there's going to be some big hiccups along the way. What were some of those things for you guys?
Well, honestly, I think we get so lucky in many different ways. We have the, usually people struggle to find a CTO, to find a technical co-founder. We have that. People struggle to find a first, location to work. And actually the school opened up a new building out of nowhere and say, you know what, it's empty, take it, it's for you. It's like 200 square meters open for you. And that's another thing that we got super lucky. Also, many different tools, many different services that we are still using now just actually appeared when we first started. So we had a bunch of, planets kind of align at that time. And also, as a first-time entrepreneur, we were really careful about the choices we made. For example, we knew we wanted to do B2B because B2B is in a way easier to sell. There is more money, it's easier to convert, easier to sell, bigger packages than when doing B2C. Totally. Software had to be, we wanted to do something self-serve from the day one, something that could sell itself without having a sales force on the side, because we knew about marketing. We didn't know a thing about sales. So we did what we knew actually.
Right.
And we went from 0 to 800 customers without having any sales.
How long?
It was like 2.5 years without having any sales, pure organic SEO. This isn't the things that we knew. So we went with what we knew. Same for the tech, same for everything. So we just removed all the unknowns from the equations because we were really careful about that. And I guess that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. That sounds like a super interesting story, right? And honestly, like I feel like it's, like a little bit of luck, a little bit of obviously hard work from everyone's side, right? And
sure.
Now, when it comes down to really like growing and scaling a business, I feel like having a good team behind you, which the three other co-founders, obviously, they each of them knew what they were doing in the respective areas. But what about, employees and hiring new people? How do you then figure out, what do I need? Like, who do I need next? Or what traits do I need to hire to find the right individual?
That's a good question. So we had this mantra that we're not going to play the startup. So we're not going to hire like 10 people in 1 month. We're not going to have 300 people, 300 sales in 1 quarter, because this is not how we wanted things to be. We wanted to automate as much as possible, scale as much as possible, just the 4 of us, until the bottleneck was so tight, was so hard to pass. Then we need to have someone else. And the first 5 hires were just like that. For example, when Elif, she's the head, lead customer success here at Livestorm. She's one of the first employees, second employee actually, to be transparent. So second employee here in Livestorm. She joined us in August 2017, and when she came here, we were doing a lot of support and customer success ourselves, and we were spending so much time that we knew that in order to get back to the product and focus again on the product, we needed to hire someone. And we did that for every single position. So marketing, customer success, DevOps, backend, et cetera, until we were really comfortable doing what we knew we were doing. And then when those people got, their plates full, their hands full, then we apply the same logic. Right. And now we were able to scale, like, we have like a 6 figures MRR, more than 1,000 customers, and we're still a team of 20-ish, 24, which is pretty small yet.
Yeah.
So
what do you think about remote versus working in everyone in the same place? Is that something that are most of the team, remote, or is everyone just working in an office? What is the
well, as I usually say, it will be like, I don't know, it'd be like a great irony if we not let people working remotely. As a video conference software, it wouldn't make sense not to let them work remotely, right? So actually 30%, a bit more now, that 20% of the team is actually working remotely, mostly tech people. And the reason why we started doing this is also because the market here for hiring developers is really, really tight. It's the same in the US, but it's really tight here in Paris. You cannot find the talents that you need, especially when you have like kind of exotic technologies, really cutting edge technologies, etc. So we needed to open our horizon, and we opened it to France. We even have now a developer working from Chile, and one other from Sweden, now back in France, but it was in Sweden. So I think it was a really great step, when we started actually looking elsewhere, and that's really made a difference. And even for the people working in Paris, they can actually have that flexibility to, work from their home. We are having a strike right now, and it's a great way for them to, continue working from home without having to care about, how am I going to go to work with transportation, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really convenient. And I think it also has an effect that we didn't expected, is that it forces you to be super, to be super careful about how you communicate.
Totally.
When we had people working remotely, we started like documenting every single thing, all the releases, all the roadmaps, all the specifications, everything, even like internal processes on how to buy the software, how to introduce yourself, everything was documented. And that's a great way to scale, because now because those people working remotely, they will know about your company, about your process, because everything is there. And when you scale, it gets easier because everything is there. The foundation is here. When we hired this summer, 10-ish people, a bit more than 10 people. We went from 14 to 24. And we all thought that, it was process were going to break, everything were going, but turns out no, because we had the processes, the foundation was here. So it was super easy, actually.
What is your biggest fear as far as, the product?
What's our biggest fear? Well, I can be tempted to say competition, but it's always been a crowded market, and actually there are a lot of great competitors. I mean, for example, I could say some bad stuff about Zoom, but it turns out I actually love Zoom. It's a great product. The tech is great. The CEO is an awesome guy, and is really a role model. So there are a lot of good things about this. But what I'm most afraid of is not to be driven by that anymore. To be so far away from the product as a CEO that I'm not driven by it anymore. Yeah. I come from product, I come from marketing, and if at a certain point I'm not, if I don't get up in the morning because of that, then, I know that at some point there is something wrong. I think that's the main thing. Yeah.
I tend to think about things like that, to like competition, and obviously like, I feel like everybody, even like you just said, like you try not to worry about it, like it's still there, obviously, but then when you think about it in big picture, like there's literally so many businesses in the world that it doesn't even matter.
So you could say, okay, I cannot do like $100 billion company. Okay, fine. But you know what? There is so many businesses. There is, the US market is already super vast, and this is our main market. And we're still in France. We don't have any office in the US, and yet the US is our main market for some reason. So there is a lot of room already. Europe is another really huge market. And one thing that we noticed is that the SMB, which is like maybe 90% of the companies in the world, tend to get more and more equipped with SaaS and really cutting edge products. So there is this new emerging market of SMBs and very small companies that are, actually buying those kind of products. So it's huge. Yeah.
I think it's just going to keep growing, which is crazy, because you feel like everybody's already, using these tools and everything, but then you go and like, even if you just talk to somebody that isn't necessarily involved in like startup space, and you mention, one of the biggest tools, like, what are you talking? I've never even heard of that thing before, which is crazy to us, right? Because we're like living in it, but there's hundreds and thousands of people that don't know anything really about it yet, which is, it's nice.
Yeah, I was having this conversation with, I don't know, it was like someone that was really not from the startup world, not even the tech, or far from it, working in insurance companies. And didn't know about Slack, for example. Right. And when we talk about Slack every day, and then when I told that person about Slack, then, they were like, wow, that's awesome. And I even think they started actually using it, and so, I think there is like a huge market for every SaaS.
Absolutely. Now, to kind of like switch gears here a little bit and to talk a little bit more about marketing, when was it in the span of 4 years, when did you realize, we needed to get more eyes on the product? Like, I feel like there's, stages where you're building the product, you're making sure that everything's working properly, maybe get people with word of mouth and stuff like that. But when did you say, okay, we need to start scaling our efforts to start generating more users?
Well, so I think okay, let me tell you a little story of how we started. So first of all, we obviously focused on the product. We knew we had some features to catch up for being like the basics of the webinar software that we were building. So we were really focusing on that. And obviously we're getting some signups, getting some people reaching out. So our take was to say, okay, let's just automate as much as possible. I'm just one guy. I need to take care of customer success, of marketing, of everything here. So we had this, I love this tool, so I'm just going to promote that openly, but we use customer.io, right? And it automates everything during the customer lifecycle, webhooks, emails, messages, whatever you want to use. It's awesome. So I had this from day one running, and entire workflow of onboarding, when people were buying a plan, everything was automated. And even when people were signing up, we had this analytics, grabbing all the data from the company, firmographic data about industry, everything, and building up a persona on the background. So I didn't have to worry about that as well. And at some point when we figured, okay, we caught up with all the basics of the webinar features, we were getting some good traction. That was more or less when we reached like 100-ish customers.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting more and more, let's say, caught by marketing and not product anymore and product decisions. And this is where actually I had this need of finding someone that could do what I did in terms of automation, in terms of technical marketing, but also marketing like old school kind of pure marketing, like content, SEO, and so on and so forth, and have this kind of full stack marketing. And this was really hard to find. But, when that person came in, I felt that having someone really dedicated, 100% focus made like a huge difference.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's a matter of bottlenecks. When I felt that I couldn't deal with both product and marketing at one time, even with automating as much as we can,
right.
then it makes sense to hire someone and then scale the efforts.
Totally. And one thing that is very apparent here is that it seems like you're very good at delegating things, right? So obviously not until you know you need to do it, and that's not necessarily, I wouldn't say that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing, because until you can't handle it, then you go ahead and just leave it, to somebody else that's better than you at doing so. How do you think, what do you think about delegating? Like, when should it be done? Should it be done right when you can't handle anymore? Should you prep for it? Like, if you could go back now and say, okay, I need to start delegating for something that isn't even a bottleneck before, would you do that?
Yeah, it's still the case, right? I think my job as a CEO is to learn all the different jobs that are not technical on a company, and then do all of them. And then when I spend too little time on that, and I feel that not really, when I'm actually hurting the company because I'm not spending so much time on it, then I tend to delegate. It's not so much of a matter of bottlenecks, but more of the momentum that starts slowing down, it starts hurting the company because I'm not dedicated to that specific task. So to give you an idea, I was spending a lot of time on, for example, hiring, right? And then when things started to grow, I spent more time with investors, with admin stuff, and so on and so forth, and not that much time on recruiting. But I still was the guy recruiting and doing the sourcing and doing the screening calls, etc. And I felt that hiring was getting slower and slower, and this is where I started dedicating all the specific sourcing and tasks to my co-founders and the team leads and so on, because they will be able to actually give more bandwidth to that specific task. So this is how I think about delegating. But am I good at delegating? Obviously, there are a couple of things that I like that I've struggled delegating, specifically, right. Marketing, for example. This is the stuff that I love. I love growth. I come from that background, and I know, and I still have some stuff that I do on, for example, like setting up segment.com or spending time on, hacking some stuff up. I do spend sometimes yet doing this, right? But I know I have to delegate that, because otherwise I'm just overlapping with someone else's job, and maybe they will not feel good about it, right? So, yeah.
Cool, that's awesome. I love it. One question that I should have asked earlier. You don't have to give me a specific figure if you are, but with 4 co-founders, did you guys bootstrap, or are you funded? And if you're funded, from what point? Again,
sure.
You don't have to give me a figure if you don't want.
Happy to share. Everything's public, so I don't mind. We started back in 2016, and we stayed bootstrapped until, the context in Fringe is specific, because you get where when you had an internship, you can still get money from the state to help you out, etc. So we stayed like that, bootstrapped in a way from 2016 to June 2017. This is where we raised actually a seed round. It was a small seed round here in Paris, so 500K. Still a lot of money, but still kind of small, given the market. And actually, we had this really efficient way of maintaining cash flow, really like balanced. So we stayed with that 500K for 2 years until this year, actually. And we raised a Series A that was officially in September 2019, and it was like 4.6 million euros.
Nice.
Yeah.
Congrats, man. That's a couple months ago, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
With the cash flow statement on there, like, it was relatively balanced and well handled. Is somebody in the company well versed with finance?
No one, but I learned the job on my end, right? So right. I had this really, I don't know how you say that in English, but I'm careful, I'm prudent, I think, and I don't want to spend money that I don't have. So typically, I was always the foot on the brake, foot on the gas, and say, okay, I can invest a bit more here, but then I can, make sure that this doesn't burn out. So it was like that for 2 years. It was a bit frustrating sometimes because we knew we could do more, but now that we have Series A, it's time that we unlearn what we all those things of being careful and everything. Right? Exactly, we have to learn to be careful. You have to let things go and try and experiment, and that's the main thing right now that we're trying to learn.
That's awesome, man. And we have a couple minutes here, and just to kind of shift a little bit more into personal side of owning and running a business, right? On a personal level, what is the most challenging thing of being the CEO over at Livestorm?
So there are two things. The first one is balance. I mean, I think I'm a pretty balanced guy. I don't stay at the office until midnight or 10 p.m. or whatever, working my ass off. I tend to have the same hours as everyone, and that shows them also that they don't have to spend that much time at work as well. So there's this other effect as well. But I tend to be balanced. I know I have someone at home waiting for me, so I have to stay balanced for that person as well. So so this is the first thing I need to work on every day. And the second thing is, I think have a thick skin. There are things that are bad. There are every day. There are things that are bad, but not all the bad things are equal. So typically when someone refuses your offer for an hiring, for example, it's bad, and you can feel bad about it. You can question yourself, like, okay, why? Why? Why we're not that good or whatever, but then you just let things. You have to learn to let things go, and because there are actually things that are worse than that. And this is, I think, one of the hardest things. When you see a new competitor coming on the market, or you see, I don't know, someone that gets hunted or poached by other companies, and you love that person, you don't want them to leave. That's an everyday struggle, but every day you have to build that thick skin and rationalize everything and make sure you take the right decisions and not be too emotional about it. And that's
Great answer. If you could go back to, say, day one or the early days, with the 4 years so far that you've been going strong, if you could go back, what would you tell yourself to maybe do differently?
I would tell myself, enjoy, because it was gonna get worse. So enjoy this. Every single founders that I met told me, enjoy this phase because it's the greatest phase of the company. You're just your co-founders. You're this bootstrap phase, right? You're just building the product. You only care about the product. And I didn't notice at the time, but it's actually a great phase because it's really it's something that builds up, the friendship builds up, the values builds up, the culture. It's really good moment, right? So really enjoy that moment, even if it's hard, enjoy it. And the second thing is be more, I'd say be more square, be more, in French we say be more square, but be more, attentive to your metrics. I think I started caring about cash, about finance, about the metrics, about the KPIs, about the reporting a bit too late, I think. Now it's good, it's in place, but when you start tracking everything from day one, you get more used to it, and then it gets easier to do it, and you can spend less time. So it's an investment that you make at the beginning for actually having more time at the end focusing on different things. So yeah, those are the two things I would tell myself.
Cool. Awesome. And what is your favorite tool?
Wow, my favorite tool. So the first, I have to pick one. Okay, I'm gonna go with the first one that I mentioned here, Customer.io. I've been, say that. yeah. And honestly, I've been using it since I was an intern in my 4th year of university. So that takes me back, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, something like that. So,
that's cool.
Yeah, it's a great tool. I mean, I love it. Company is great as well. Small team, great people, cool values. I mean, role model, if you ask me.
Awesome. Where can people find you online?
Well, Livestorm. I mean, the company or me?
Both.
Okay, Livestorm.co for the company, and on Twitter it's Livestorm app. So you'll find us. As for me, it's a weird French name you won't find, but if you type Gilles Livestorm Twitter on Google, you'll find my Twitter account, and that's how you can find me.
Awesome. And last question here, Gilles. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah. How do you I mean, is this the only thing that you do? I mean, is this like your business, and how is it different? I mean, you interviewed a lot of different SaaS and startups companies, and do you feel there's a difference between having this podcast and having like a SaaS company, or do you see similarities, or, what's your experience as a podcaster?
That's a good question. I mean, it's not the main thing. I have the agency, but I think the podcast, it's nice. For one, you can get to meet a ton of different people, right? Like, I feel like after starting this, I literally have, maybe not the type of connection that you'd call your friend or something like that, but I feel like I can reach out to people. Like now, I feel like I can send you a message over in Paris. I have people that I can send a message to in Morocco, and just a lot of different places like that, right? So it kind of like makes you feel this sense of connection, which is always nice, to just know more people in the space that you love. And also just learning about, how people are I feel like this isn't something like, for example, you've only been through your own journey at this point, right? So like you only know what you've experienced. But when I interview people, I feel like I can hear a bunch of different industries, like how did Freshworks, and, how are they doing marketing? How are you doing marketing? How is that different? Why is it different? So it kind of like brings up a lot of different questions that I typically tend to, ponder a lot of, and it's good because it helps me as a marketer on, what's the best approach for a specific type of company, essentially. So it's nice to just understand a little bit more about different markets.
That's a great answer. I mean, I'm asking because we were actually thinking of, running a podcast, and I think the main benefit that I've seen in having a podcast is exactly what you described, meeting other people that does the same thing different ways, and you can basically aggregate all of that and make some kind of, and do your own about it, and get inspired. So
it's fun. It's fun. And how you mentioned, right? Like you have like you yourself, you're a marketer, you enjoy marketing, and it's nice because it gives you a almost like a separate project to challenge yourself with and say, how am I going to grow this thing? Because it's not the same as growing a SaaS company. And I've never, I guess in a way I have helped grow SaaS companies, but it hasn't been like I didn't build it. So it's a little bit of a different process there, but it's definitely, I think you'll like it. And especially, given the space that you're in, obviously like web conferencing and stuff like that, I think it would be relatively relevant to, the entire company and what you're doing. So it might be fun. I'd definitely give it a shot if I were you.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Cool. Well, thank you, Gilles, so much for being on here today. Again, it was a pleasure. And for anyone that's watching, make sure you like, subscribe. If you like it, if you don't like it, give it a thumbs down, I guess. But again, thank you for being all here today.
Cheers.
Catch you soon. Take care, man.